So part of me wants to introduce, but I don't know how to introduce because I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, right. Of course. We're gonna have a conversation,
Cool.
you and I,
Okay.
and it's going to be roughly related to the imaginal realm and comedy.
Nice. Yeah.
Like if there's a Venn diagram, we're talking about the overlap between those two concepts.
Perfect. Okay. And we're having a conversation. Who are you? Who are you?
Who am I?
Yeah.
The question I'm dying to know the answer to. My name is Mitch Lewis. I go by Foolish Coward online. I have worked in comedy for the last 15 years or so. That's as good as I can do right
That's
now.
who you are. Yeah.
I mean, no,
Nice.
it's not, but sure. These are common attributes of my mask.
Okay. Yeah. What if I just kept asking the question for an hour? Who are you?
Oh my God. I mean, some part of me would be like, yes, Rosa, ask me again and again, and let me tell you about how incredible I am and how beyond description I am. But, I do have some sensitivity for the viewers.
Okay. Yeah. Nice.
Wait, who are you?
Who am I?
Yeah.
Shit. I'm Rosa Lewis.
No relation.
No relation. And I am a meditation teacher, I guess. Probably the closest box to put
we have a lot of conviction in these identities right now, folks. Get in on these. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. I more formally identify as just like a bit of the universe.
And then I immediately feel like release in my body. I'm like, right,
yeah,
that's a closer cut.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? It's just the universe.
It's just
processing between itself right now.
That's it. Yeah. No problem.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so you invited me to come on this talk show. I'm calling it a talk show. That's very 90s. To talk about comedy because I've worked in it. I have a list of things. I was like, because after we talked last time, I was like, all right, I'll like throw some stuff down. I think the first thing to start with in me is one of the reasons why I'm excited about doing this with you is that it's a more thorough examination of a process that I'm so familiar with that I kind of discount that it's actually a process. Like the experience of coming up with jokes of like allowing the sensing organism to feel into the dark and like pull on threads that turn into laughter for yourself, for others. So that's the process that I'm wanting to start to look at with you.
Nice. Yeah, it's nice when it's you like fish in water, you can like start to see the thing that just you naturally do.
It is a strange thing, and we all do it. We all have conversations, whether it's like a backyard barbecue or out at a pub or something. Like we're laughing with friends, and there's just a sense of playing together in ideas. And the first ingredient that has become really clear to me is trust. Like you have to have trust. For me, if I don't feel trust with the other person or with the people, then my willingness to take the risk of telling a joke is completely diminished. Because it's a highly risky social choice to tell a joke. If there's not a laugh, instant rejection. So like my own internal experience is so painful. And then social status also immediately shrinks. Like it's a high risk activity. So trust in the connection is imperative for me. And I think it is for probably most people.
This is interesting. It's showing me something about myself, which is that that one of the things about me is I am quite sort of, I'm a very humorous person, but I'm not that, am I funny? I don't know. it's hard to judge yourself. It's funny, isn't it?
And as soon as you ask, it's like, oof, probably not.
Yeah.
As soon as you ask, it's like, if I'm asking, it's probably not true.
But one of the things about me is that I always laugh at my jokes. I'm doing now. And so it removes the risk, but there's something about me doing it as a way it's almost like when I'm in a environment where I feel unsafe, it's like laughter is a response in me that is like a safety creating thing. If I'm laughing at myself, then everyone can just sort of like
wow. Like, oh man, like the experience of you laughing at yourself before anyone else could laugh at you, is that part of it?
It's more like if we're all just being silly, then it's fine and it's safe.
Yeah.
And I don't mind being a bit of it, like laughing a bit and being a bit silly to cause that.
Does that feel like a conscious choice in you in social settings?
I think it's like a bit of a fawn response, making other people feel comfortable.
I just got sad.
Yeah, it is. It's sad. It's sad. Yeah, it feels really. This has got really serious really quickly.
I mean, this is the risk of going into comedy. I mean, most comedians are just devastatingly sad.
Yeah.
So this will yeah. The most tears shed on any episode.
That's me. I think I am just like devastatingly sad and in touch with lots of really deep sadness, and also it definitely part of it is to do with like being oppressed as a woman and just like all of this really heavy stuff. And it's like the coping mechanism, but also the kind of like life's hard for everyone, so let's find some joy in it, is the laughter and the jokes and silliness.
Totally. I mean, regardless of one's particular flavor of suffering, it's quite a cliche, but like laughter being a form of medicine, it really is a form of like psychological medicine. It provides so much release, and especially in those moments where the pain, the suffering is particularly high. And way too late, I started doing research on this, mostly to defend my use of humor. I was like, we're getting into a place, and I spent the last 4 years working at Comedy Central, which is a very corporate setting. It's Viacom. It's a huge corporation, and so I found myself more often having to look at jokes or opinions from so many more perspectives than I ever had before. And so there is this thing where you're like, oh wait, what are we saying? What is the point of this joke? What is actually being laughed at? Why is there laughter coming from this? And started doing a deep dive on dark comedy, which is a world that I love, and read something about Freud being one of the first folks to point at this in a like very specific clinical way with the phrase gallows humor, that people were, who had been sentenced to be hung would often display senses of humor about this experience, that we're faced with a level of helplessness, complete lack of control. And so like a sense of humor just kind of automatically comes from that. And my sense is for people who are really in touch with that lack of control that is present quite frequently, dark humor is going to be online more often.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, because one of the reasons we sort of started this conversation was around sympathetic joy, wasn't it? And I link that those two things are what links sympathetic joy in my understanding of it, which is that it's like the sympathetic joy is the part where you give up and give yourself to the ecosystem. So almost the image I have of it is like when a lion's chasing an antelope or something, and then it gets to the point the antelope knows it's going to die, and it just gives up and sort of gets flooded with positive, like like near-death experience type bliss state experience, and it's just like, oh, I'm off into the ecosystem. And that's the same mechanism that my dark humor is. It's like, oh well, we're going down, so crack a joke.
Totally yeah. Man, wow. I the antelope, I'm very with that. Yeah, like a deep state of surrender is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now I'm trying to do transitions.
Yeah. Well, I think when you
guys have to understand, we did not script this.
This is not scripted or planned.
No, this is not a tight 60 minutes. This is very loose.
These are the best bits.
Oh fuck. Oh no, I'm not sounding impressive. Hold on. I know what I'm doing. Quick, course correct. Make it look good. Make it sound good.
Shit, did I start recording?
Oh fuck.
I feel like I need to tell the viewers that this that's not my tiny that's not my tiny bed.
Yeah, this is the first time you're being seen.
Yeah.
Oh wow. I mean, we're breaking new territory here. Yeah. I was pretty caught up the first time I saw this tiny bed. I was very concerned. It was an oddly Harry Potter-esque situation, like slightly nicer. There's a plant and some books and things, but I did feel like, Rosa, like, what kind of environment is this for you? It's just I guess it's just a resting bed. If you like need a quick tiny rest. I don't know. Still not exactly sure on it, but look, who am I to judge your you seem to have things going pretty well. So tiny bed, great. You can't hear this, but Rosa is laughing. She's choking. Okay, she's back.
I'm back. Yeah.
Okay, so ingredient 1 for comedy.
Trust. Lovely.
Then we get into something that you and I have talked about before, which is the art of a playful reveal, finding ways to point at these parts of ourselves that are not usually included in social norms for conversation. There's a way of accessing these things, whether they're taboo or part of our shadow, or just the things that we kind of, I'm raising my eyebrows for those of you who are just listening, we kind of skip right over them in a way. That's a little inconvenient for this conversation, so we'll just pass it by. Bringing those things in, and this is directly related to the trust, where you have some sense of how much of yourself you can reveal, or what parts of yourself might be welcome in this particular connection. And a comedy club is a place that is inherently built, in my opinion, to hold more of our experience. It has traditionally been a place where we're able to intentionally explore the taboo, and we trust these particular artists, creatives, to bring it in a way that is quite thoughtful, and allows us all to have a little bit of access and take a look at parts of ourselves that we generally kind of sweep under the rug.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that. What was the bit called? Playful reveal, did you call it?
Playful reveals.
Playful reveals.
It sounds like a weird strip club. It's like a goofy strip club, which is ultimately my dream, is to own and run a playful strip club where I am the star and people pay a lot of money to see me tell jokes and reveal my body.
Amazing. Got the name. Got the idea. That's cool. Yes, I like this. It's like the fine line, isn't it? How you want to go too far, but not too far with it as well.
And that sense of going too far changes every day with every group. Yeah. This is what we say, often people say, oh, read the room. And this is one of the comedian's most important tools, is being able to read the room. And you kind of feel this when you go to comedy clubs, where someone will try out some material and get a sense for where the audience is. Where is the audience's line? And the audience's line may not be the same as theirs. So you're crafting, like, how far can I push this audience? And a little bit of it is the audience does want to be pushed, but like you said, not too far. So it's this weird intuitive art of, like, even as I think about it now, energetically feeling into the room. It's not like you have a questionnaire that you have each audience member fill out. You're just getting a sense based on response. Are they with me on this? Okay, I'm going to try a joke about death. How do they respond? Oh, they didn't like that. Okay, we're going to pivot. We're going to go back towards dick jokes or whatever. Yeah.
There's a question in me, because this really reminds me of Dharma teaching. It's very similar. It's like, oh, how much can I push this person's like consciousness without triggering all their sort of like ego safety features just coming online, like, and it's like sometimes, and I think that it's like, if this is interesting, this is super interesting, if the trust is there, you can just feel into that energy and like push a little bit more, and it's really smooth. And as the like teacher or the guide, you're kind of like, it's a really nice experience, because you're just sort of like slowly expanding that a bit more. But if the trust isn't there, it's stressful, because it's like their egos online, and sometimes there's a sense of like, I've been in the position where it's, you just have to push through, and you have to like, there's a sense of maybe kind of going back to what you're saying about like, why are you telling these jokes, why are you doing that? There's a sense of like, why am I doing this? And actually sometimes it's important to just keep going and to push through that. And I think it's maybe the same with comedy as well. There's a sense of like, sometimes the thing that you're saying is so important, you have to really push people's boundaries with it.
Completely. Yeah, I completely agree. It's amazing to see the one-to-one there. Immediately the name Jim Carrey comes to mind as someone who is like kind of doing both. I don't even know that most people appreciate just how much he's offering the collective conscious these days. But yeah, it feels like he's somehow doing both of those things really clearly.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, that pushing. Yeah, I'm thinking of times when either myself or with my creative partners, the Clunes, or just watching other artists, comedians work, that sense of when they find a line, like hitting it again and again until there is a breaking point. Like there does seem to be some skill for technicians where they're like, oh, this is where the line is. Okay, I'm actually going to note that and come back to it in 5 minutes, and then I'm going to do it again in 5 minutes. And at that point, you're going to go with me.
Yeah.
That there is some ability to do that as well with comedy.
I love repetitive jokes. They're one of my favorite jokes, when people just keep going.
It almost is like a gimmick, because when you see people start to do it, then it's like literally just a button that the comedian has found, whether it's one person or an audience, and they can just say the word again. They don't have to do anything else. They just say the word, and then you're in stitches. It's incredible. You're like, how is this happening? This is the part where I'm like, comedy is mysticism. It's an unbelievable art form.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And another bad transition. You guys ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay, the art beyond trust. And what were we saying? Oh, environment. I guess I was kind of talking about environments for saying things that you think are funny.
Yeah.
Check. I'm organizing the chaos that is comedy. Is that working? Okay, so you're in a trusting situation, or you're like, not everyone here, I'm assuming not all of your millions of viewers are here to become comedians, but just bringing awareness to the comedic process. Once you start to find a comedic vein, you just let yourself continue to associate and run down that path. And I think different minds have different comedic instincts. For me, like the art of finding the most wrong thing and then running with it, that seems to be my comedic inclination. So I think about a lot of the sketches that I've made with my creative partners. One of them is a sketch called Prada Body Bag. And we were thinking of Prada bags and how much money people pay for these luxury bags, how silly. And then we were like, well, what if Prada got into body bags? And that's the spark. We were like, oh, that's genius. And then we'll make a commercial, like a luxury fashion commercial for body bags. And then we just allow ourselves to live in that world where this amazing international fashion brand actually scripts a commercial to sell people body bags for when they're dead. And you're just actively kind of seeing, oh, what's the most wrong thing over and over again. Oh yeah, the people will be at the party and they'll see this woman fall down the stairs. She'll just lay dead on the floor, and then a bunch of people will bring this bag in and everyone will be like, oh my God, how gorgeous, and they'll want the bag for themselves. You just kind of allow yourself to live in the world of wrongness, in a way that is like kind of, it's like an indirect pointing at all of the unconscious norms that we have. Like you're so in the world of wrong that you start to see, oh wow, I didn't realize I was with all of these beliefs about how it ought to be, and this is just so clearly not okay. But I hadn't been with that before.
Yeah, totally. I love that. And it's like yeah, the living in the world feels really important. The living in the world of it. It's like you're not just like, oh, look at this thing, like pointing at it. It's kind of like really getting in there, and that somehow it's almost like turning beliefs and everything inside out and upside down, and just giving a different perspective, which creates it's richer, isn't it, than just like, oh, a joke about pointing out a thing. It's kind of like creating a whole shift in experience that takes people on a bit of a journey as well.
Totally. And even as you're saying it, I'm aware of, in work that I've done with you, the imaginal practice and the experience of really allowing yourself to go into the imaginal space and just see things come up. Like, where are they coming from? I don't know. but you are in this permission state in yourself to really go there and to build out this world with crazy detail. Yeah, just allowing yourself to fully live in that, whatever that world is.
Yeah, and it feels like it's opening the door to the same part of experience. It's like the subconscious and the archetypal realm, where it's like you say, it's like we sort of function in this kind of rational, practical level that's very structured and sort of almost like scripted a bit between people, like social roles and what can be said. And then underneath that, there's just like immense richness and like all this information that people have no idea is there. And then, when you delve into the imaginal realm, or like through this way, through making a world like you were describing, it's like you're just opening that up and opening the possibility. And I think the reason a lot of people don't go down there is because there's a lot of darkness and stuff. So it has to include a permission for darkness.
And as Rosa says this, a terrifying grin comes over my face. Yes. Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's so funny, as we say this, I'm flashing on images of my Auntie Karen as a kid. Like, we would watch Saturday Night Live on Sunday mornings. My dad would make pancakes or French toast or whatever, and we would watch the VHS recording of Saturday Night Live, and my aunt just laughing hysterically and be like, oh my God, that's so wrong. Like, that experience of seeing the darkness and as a child being with my aunt, and the like giddiness that we all felt in those moments, like, I know that just had a huge influence on my my draw towards comedy as an adult.
Yeah, that's super nice. That's a lovely story. When you talk about going into the darkness, I have a very, very clear energetic sense of what that is. Like, I've really been with the like micro phenomenology of it. I've spent a lot of time really paying attention to what happens, and there's almost like a when you do it, that movement, it's like it's like a sort of it's almost like disappearing into a very dark space, and then sort of getting pulled off to the side energetically, by a sort of like devilish energy, and then it like, oh, it turns it back around at the last minute, and it's like, here's a little thing. Just like every time you say it, I'm like, just so I feel it happening to me.
It's a little pull, and we're not living here, we're just taking a look. That's so funny. Even that description of the energetic sense of like, I'm doing the microphone thing again, where I'm moving from one side to the other. He's so easily distracted. Yeah, that pull into it and not dwelling in it. It is like brushing up against it, like tap dancing against it almost. Yeah. And even getting a feel from the world of comedy, getting a feel for how much contact you can make with it and how intently you can run the audience into that with you. And that the audience really needs to trust you. Again, this is like the trust on their side, like or on the receiver end. They need to trust that you're not going to overwhelm them with that or get stuck there in a way that they're not going to have that cathartic release. Because that laughter experience makes it so it's like, oh, thank God we've somehow left it behind. And if you never get that laughter moment, it's, you know, people know this from going to bad comedy shows. That state is really uncomfortable.
Yeah. Where people are, where you go into the darkness and then just
you're just swimming in it, and there's no cathartic release, and you can, I mean, I can feel it right now. My asshole's getting tight, my body is clenching, and you're just like, oh, is it going to happen? Like, oh God, no. There is like a cringe, the eyes are closing, and you're feeling for them, like your own, for me, my human compassion for this person who's like bearing their soul, their darkness, and they're not getting the audience response. It's like, oh, it's awful.
Yes.
The half-life of jokes.
The half-life.
Chapter 4.
Nice.
Okay, so was talking about this with a friend recently in conversation, or when you are hanging out with your friends, something humorous will happen, and maybe everyone has a really big laugh about it. In a best case scenario, it becomes like an inside joke that you guys can all reference for years and years, and then you just say dictionary, and everyone's like, ha 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 ha, and anyone around you is like, that's not funny, and you're like, yes it is. Like, there's this amazing shorthand in it. And those are moments where the half-life of a joke is extremely long, but only for the people who all like originally touched the actual like fresh spark of that comedy experience. And for people who are working in comedy, your job is to have that fresh laughter experience by yourself or with others, and then replicate it over and over and over again. For people who do live comedy, or even if you're making content for the internet like we do, you're trying to replicate an organic emergence of comedy for others. And there is a natural half-life where it's really hard to replicate. Like it's an almost impossible task. It's especially like if you've told a funny joke to someone and then you're with a new crowd and they're like, Rosa, tell John that joke you told me the other day. And for me, the existential dread of that moment is so high, because you're like, it's never going to work. There's no way.
Terrible. Yeah.
It's awful. So something about that ephemeral nature of that comedic spark as well is hard to, it's still hard for me to understand.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. This is really hard. I think this is where this is so interesting to me, because this is where I'm definitely not funny. I'm terrible at telling stories or telling jokes. If I'm like consciously telling a joke, it's gonna pan. There's no way it'll be funny. No one's gonna laugh.
Totally. Oh my God. Yeah, go continue.
It's more like, for me, it's much more just noticing funny things in experience all the time. I'm just amused by life all the time. The idea that comedians can get up and perform that like funniness, create it and then perform it, is quite amazing to me.
I just got chills down my spine as you said it. It's one of my, I'm feeling it right now. I'm so blown away by this skill that people have. It's incredible. And even from my own experience, and I have done very little live comedy in the last many years, but people identify me as a comedian, and then I'll be in a group setting, meeting new people, and so, oh, you're funny, like tell us a joke. And that pressure in that moment, and I feel it on behalf of all comedians and on myself, like just because someone works in comedy does not mean that's the only thing they want to do. And you get into that like dance monkey dance kind of energy,
Yeah.
which is really painful for people to not have space for the fact that that's not the only thing present for people who work in comedy.
Yeah.
Tricky.
Yeah, that's hard. Yeah, that's a lot, isn't it? I generally relate to this in sort of like being the fun person, making people laugh. There's huge amounts of pressure in those roles, isn't there?
Yeah.
And it's like why those roles are put on, and when it's okay to take them off, and like what the space is for that, and that just feels like a hugely rich, deep topic as well.
And I feel suddenly quite curious about that for you. It just feels like, ooh, there's something here that I'm interested in.
Yeah, it's almost like the unrelatability of my experience and my experiences. It's just so hard to be in those in myself and be present. And so there's always a little bit of an aspect of trying to sort of joke about it, or like be light and be in that role a little bit. I think it's hard for me to just sit back and like be myself, whatever that means.
I just got so mad when you said it too. Yeah. Be yourself. Oh, you be yourself. Oh, it's so easy to just be yourself. Go for it. Show me how it's done, pro. Sure. Hey, we say this all the time to people.
Yeah,
and we don't actually mean it, by the way.
No, yeah, that's the thing.
Really? The Unabomber? You want the Unabomber to just be himself? No, you don't. You absolutely don't want him to be himself. No question. You want him to get into therapy fast.
Oh, yeah. And it's like, if I start being myself, it can freak people out quite quickly.
Oh, wow. Yes. Okay. I'm overwhelmed because I'm so excited by what you just said. Okay, I'm going to try to make this a coherent thought. Like, the more of yourself you have access to, the more dissonance one can feel in relation to others if the sense is that they don't have access or have not experienced those parts of themselves. And a comedian is often in that place where they're kind of guiding an audience into parts of themselves they haven't been into. And for me, the experience of often being in social connections where I have to leave out so much of myself is a really physically uncomfortable experience.
Yeah, really relatable. But what's the physical discomfort aspect of it?
The way that I'm most clear in it, try to feel into it right now, like when I've been in environments where I feel how much of myself has to be left out, there's a sense of an energetic contortion. I'm kind of, again, for the audio listeners, I'm like contorting my body a little bit in strange ways. It just feels like I have to kind of fit myself through a like labyrinth of weird shifty things. And it's not like my body is actually doing that as I walk around, but that's what feels like is happening on an energetic level. lots of constriction, tightness, maneuvering. Yeah. Deep contraction, asshole like habitually tight. That's my final holdout for tension. If the rest of my body is fairly free, the last piece to go is that asshole. It's still like, oh, I'm holding on for everybody. Not here. A lot of work, by the way.
Yeah, what happens if you relax it now?
Well, I might shit my pants as well. Might happen, which, by the way, I have done more recently than I care to admit. I'm a very advanced being who shits himself on occasion.
Yeah, interesting. trying to segue back.
Yeah, that was clean.
Back to the energy.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's interesting. You shit yourself. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, I think I can recognize that energy distortion, but it's very, it generally comes out very differently for me, and that's interesting, seeing the contrast.
I mean,
of it.
And how does it go?
Yeah, I think for me there's a lot of it's like kind of it's almost like I sit back and check out a bit, and I'm like up here and back, back billions of light years, just like this whole universe. And then there's like this part of me that's sort of just here and is like responding and in connection and doing the things and and then there's just like this whole universe back here, and it's sort of I think it dims me a bit. I'm a bit sort of like this, and kind of like a bit smaller and a bit sort of like, whereas when I'm like actually present, I'm much more kind of in experience and in my body. And
I felt that even before you said the word dim, the kind of muted quality of your body and your movements, slightly empty or something. It feels like such a drag.
Yeah.
For all of us, for myself, it just feels like, wow, how much we all collectively in those environments move away from what's actually happening. It just feels like, oof, devastating.
Yeah.
So much potential.
Yeah. Yeah. And also it's not safe for people, is it? They can't deal with it, most people. So that's sort of why all the capes are there, isn't it? Because there's too much for them.
It's a lot, to be totally clear.
What's it when you say it? Do you just mean like life?
I mean, do you just mean like life is kind of a lot? Such a flippant energy. It's like life can be kind of overwhelming for me sometimes. As soon as I started to touch that which is completely beyond comprehension, the futility of the mind becomes so clear. Well, even right now, I was like, the futility of the mind is clear. Not much more to say, is there, Rosa? So let me use the mind to try to explain this a little better.
We could just turn it all off now.
Ooh, that sound feels good to make.
Yeah.
And now I need a pop filter.
Yeah. Next chapter. What was this chapter again?
Supposedly was on the half-life of jokes, but I think we got derailed. We got derailed somewhere with regards to the overwhelming nature of existence. What's the wrong thing? Yeah, word association. Oh, so chapter 17, word association. Yeah, so you're like allowing yourself to just say things, and if the rational mind is still involved, it can be really hard. Basically you're starting to articulate beyond social convention, social norms, and so there is some amount of filter that has to be let go of to just let the thing run. And this is also what's so risky, is that then you may say things that are going to cause harm or could be misinterpreted, um, or you're saying things in a way or in a context that is meant to be funny, but if they were said in a different moment, it would not be funny.
Yeah.
So there is it's a very vulnerable process of digging in and just letting it kind of come out and then making of it what you can afterwards. And this is for me the excuse me, for me, this process and having two creative partners that I've been friends with for half my life, it's a godsend, because the amount of trust and safety I have, if I accidentally say something that's like, oh, that actually isn't right, there's enough trust that it's like, he's kind of just exploring some things and it's okay. So yeah, having, again, coming back to that trust piece, like having the space to be able to dig into things and articulate things, because you're truly in unknown. It's not, yeah, your socialization is a little more offline, so you're going to say stuff that's like, what was that?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that really hit me actually in a quite strong emotional way. There's a sense of like, I get a sense of trust being, knowing that that person's not going to use something against you, and just like how powerful that is, and how little of that I had in my life, how much that's a recent thing that I found, where it's like, trusting that this person, this thing that I'm saying, this person isn't going to turn around and be like, somehow use it against me, and how much of a like, how painful that is and how restrictive that is, and how much I've almost spent my whole life like railing against that, but it being an incredibly stressful experience and process in my life.
Lots of resonance, and then I get really cautious because we're starting to approach territory that I think is top of mind for a lot of people working in the creative field and important. Well, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna I'm gonna say it. The words cancel culture, which are, have been around for the last several years, especially, and this sense of when is something someone has said used against them, the outrage machine that is the internet, and oh my gosh, this person said this thing, and there's a lot of stuff that is inappropriate, and I have examined this a lot on my own. Like, there is a collective reckoning with regards to language happening that's very necessary, and especially in the world of comedy, it thrives. The comedic gold is in that edginess. It's when we're poking at the taboos. It's when we're dancing in that gray space. And I think it's a hard time to do that. Like, we're asking for more psychological safety as a society. And I think as a result, there is a little more hesitance approaching the edge. At least there is in me.
Yeah, there's a very subtle difference, which is someone challenging someone's ideas and challenging someone as a person. And people just don't seem to have the capacity to know the difference. People really can't, like, people, even really intelligent people can't see the difference, that if someone's out there and putting out a bunch of ideas, or I put out a bunch of ideas and someone says, oh, I don't agree with this, or this isn't right, or blah, 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 like, that's fine. It's kind of like, sure. I think in a way, there's a responsibility as someone who's putting stuff out there that it should be right. And if it's not, you should be willing to look at it and kind of reflect, and then then it's like someone attacking like you as a person, and the difference between those two, the people can't distinguish. The people who are putting stuff out and the people who are critiquing can't distinguish. Everyone's just like, and there's something about like, if you make a mistake, you get absolutely like annihilated, and so then you don't want to admit to making a mistake, so it makes the situation worse, because then it's like, if you say something wrong, you're bad. It's the kind of equivalent, rather than just like, oh yeah, shit, I shouldn't have said that, or like,
yeah
oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
totally. Well, we are all working with, you know, various degrees of awareness of our experience and what's happening in us. Like, the expectation that someone's never going to make a mistake feels like that's not particularly realistic. And I think that we, at this point with Twitter, etc., we're very eager to see people fall, and especially people who have status, to call them out on things and, oh, they're not deserving of this. And that, this is not to say that there aren't plenty of people who have abused power and done all kinds of things that absolutely should be pointed out and dealt with. But there is a way in which I feel our collective dislike of looking at complexity and nuance and shadow is undermining our ability to grow as a group. I feel kind of cautious even saying that, but it feels true.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, it's like the capacity to, it's really about truth in a lot of ways, isn't it? It's like capacity to just look at the truth as a thing that's separate to me and you, and like what this says about me and or this other person. And people are too entrenched in that. They're too entrenched in their identity. They're too entrenched in they want to be right. They're too like, there's like this thing on Twitter where everyone's playing out their own subconscious inner world, like the political things they post, the things that they post, it's clearly just like their inner world expressed through being angry at this person instead of being angry at their dad when they were a kid or whatever, you know. It's just like same, you can just see it, and it's that's what's going on, isn't it? And that's just how it is. So yeah,
completely. Oh wow, there's so much here. What was just coming up? Oh, and then the extension of this comes to mind, which is the differing ways in which someone has said something that has been inappropriate or the public in some way has decried, and then to what degree are you willing to be in contact with that person? Like, and we have this weird now, like, truly public facing social network where you can see, are you following this comedian who said a thing 10 years ago that was really not okay? You are? Did you like one of their posts recently? Like, you're publicly displaying your approval in some way, or it can be seen in that light. And I have this sense in myself. I'm like, oh, if we're requiring that people have never made a mistake to be in contact with them, it's going to really severely limit our connections and network. And I have my own sense for myself of like, oh, I've made so many mistakes and done so many things that are abhorrent to me now, that if there's not space for that in a connection, it's like, ugh, that's not really a connection I'm inclined to, I guess.
Yeah, it just becomes like it's like that's what holds up the whole masking thing, doesn't it? It's like who can manipulate reality to have the moral high ground. That's one of the things that I noticed so much, and it's just like so it kills me.
It's wow, you just said the thing. I'm working on this article right now, and my view of Twitter is that it's just millions of people grappling for moral high ground, 248 characters at a time. Like, that's the whole thing. Just over and over and over again. Like, oh my god, what are we doing? In some ways I look at it, I'm like, this is a really problematic universe to exist in.
Yes, I feel like I have a different experience. I'm quite careful with my Twitter. I have like quite a nice little cozy corner of it where I really, really like it.
Well, and confession, this is how we met, is via Twitter.
It's true.
And seeing your Twitter, and certainly I have started to follow people that you retweet and that you're in connection with, and I have thought, wow, Rosa really is finding a cool little lagoon here within this deeply strange and diseased social network. There seems to be like a little collection of people who have nuance and are more earnest and playful, and this is me bowing down to your little community that you're building.
Nice. Yeah, I can't say it's my community, but yeah, it's a nice place to be. It's nice. And there's also like hits on a deep point of emptiness as well, which is maybe interesting, which is that like there's no universal experience. It's like everyone's experience is unique, and so my experience of what Twitter is wildly different to 99% of people who use it. And even interestingly, even I follow a very small number of people, and I don't know, I cleared my cookies on my browser and it reset me into the phase of Twitter where it just shows you loads of stuff that like other people have liked and blah blah blah.
Whoa.
Rather than like the old school. I have it on like the old school setting where the tweets come in order, it's only people you follow, that's all you get. And then it opened it up to the other thing, and I was like,
totally. Wow.
What is like all this stuff? And it was like just constant like stimulation and just like and I was like, whoa, like this is a different experience.
I mean, this is not breaking new ground at all, but you just poked at the awareness of how different each of our, like, we all have Twitter, or we're all on Instagram or whatever it is, and we're all having such literally vastly different experiences of stream of stimulus.
Yes.
And the fact that you can even click your settings or clear the cookies and then get a different version of it, even that is like, oh wow, it points to my ability to control the stream of stimulus coming through these social networks in a way that I hadn't been aware of before. Like I'm just actively over and over again reinforcing, I want this, I don't want that. I want this, I don't want that. Ooh, right, I don't like that. Unfollow.
Yeah, interesting.
I'm not sure how I feel about it right now. Like,
yeah. And it reminded me actually, because I think one of the things you do, one of the aspects of being a human is that you just reset your experience to be normal. You're just like, oh, this is normal. There's no way out of that thing, unless you're sort of like really this and that, unless you're trying to make yourself sound special, like, oh, I'm so at peace and it's like beautiful and I'm just in touch with the blah 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 all the time. Like that's trying to make yourself sound special, isn't it? If you cut all that shit, you just normalize, you can normalize anything. Like I have been through all sorts of wild experiences, and I can tell you can normalize anything.
Rosa, some of us don't have to try to be special, you know what I'm
saying? Just feeling the specialness.
It's not really a matter of trying for all of us. Oh god, how badly I want to be the most special. This has been one of my big realizations in the last many years. Like, I think I said it once to somebody, like, the kind of special that I want to be is like the person that you met at a gas station 10 years ago and like had such a profound experience with, that when you're at Thanksgiving 10 years later with your family, you're all like fondly recalling, remember we met that guy at the gas station? It was just like the most incredible experience we've ever had as human beings. That's kind of what I'm aimed at.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. That's nice. Maybe everyone wants to be special, but their own unique special.
Their own unique special, totally.
Yeah.
I think that is true.
When you're saying that, I was thinking I quite like to be when I'm walking around just like a town or a city, if I see a cat, I'm delighted. I will like hang out with the cat and spend some time with it. I'm like really happy to see that cat. I feel like, but most people just walk around and they don't notice the cat, or they don't care about the cat. They don't want to. They're just like busy. They're caught up in their own stuff. They don't know what's going on. You know, whatever. It's just a cat. But I feel like I'm a bit like the cat. So it's like sometimes I have interactions with people, you know, like you're just buying something and it's just a bit more like present and open, and they tune into you and they're like, oh, that's nice. But most people are just caught up in their stuff. They don't care about the cat. That's okay.
What is it like for you when you notice people recognizing
when people see the cat?
Yeah, it's like I imagine there's two things. There's people who are, let me say three things. One, there's people who have absolutely no idea. Like they're so caught in their thing that they're not noticing. There's people who have an experience of something with you, but they're not necessarily conscious of it happening. And then the people who are like, whoa, there's something happening here. And I'm really noticing there's something different about being with this, you know, woman at wherever this place is. Curious what those three different experiences are like for you, if there is a difference.
Yeah, good question. The first one is just the first one, I'm very much in that like universe back here, and this bit is just happening, and it just and it's just fine, but I'm not really there in the same way. It's almost like it happens to the same degree. And then the second one is nice. I like the second one. It's just like you sort of feel like you're giving them something. It's like a nice little thing for their day, kind of like smiling at someone, or it's like that. They tend to leave a little bit happier. And then I would say the third one's kind of, I mean, it's skewed again. My experience is very skewed because most of my experiences now are people like coming to me for like meditation coaching or whatever. So
self-selecting entities.
Yeah.
Yes, we want this is good, I am aware.
So then they're just like, you know, having wild energetic experiences and blah 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 blah, but that's just like what we're there to do. That's the context, what we're there to do. So
do you ever have those things happen just randomly? I'm imagining you like going to get coffee at a coffee shop or walking down the street and you end up in a conversation with someone. Is that ever part of it for you?
Yeah, I generally chat to people a lot when I'm around and out and about. And it's almost like everything is primarily an energetic experience for me. Is that true? It's like yes and no. There was a long period of my life, good couple of years, where that was the case. And now it's like that is a large portion of my experience, and it's just like noticing that that's happening all the time to everyone and everything. And so I'm just sort of like on that level. In tune with that.
Wow. Yeah, I just noticed I like flashed on what I imagine that is like for you, and then kind of like played it out as a test in myself walking down the street and feeling how different that would be.
How does it feel?
Down the street, it felt like, well, my visual field changes when I imagine it. One, it's crazy that this can happen so fast in the mind. But yeah, I like imagine myself walking down the street. I was in Washington, D.C. in my head, and like the buildings get very abstract and surreal. And I have a sense of almost like moving through with it's like the entire visual field is a little more in those like nighttime goggles or like heat sinking goggles where there's just different colors representing different energies, and like you're either magnetized towards some things or repelled from others, and you're just moving with that without as much meaning of like that's this kind of person and I'm seeing them do this thing. Is this feeling? I'm seeing head shaking. Okay.
Yeah, no, totally. That's exactly it. Yeah, it's almost like the categorization features just permanently switched off in me.
Totally. That's exactly what I was trying to describe. And do you ever flick it back on? Are you like, oh, I'll flick it on for fun? Or is it like, that's a pointless feature?
I can't imagine what it's like anymore. It's so far gone. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I just make up. I'm like, oh, this is just extreme high trust in your experience. Just I have to like get rid of the word just because I use it in ways I don't mean it. In this moment, it really feels not true. Like I'm actually with some kind of awe about the trust that you have in your experience to move in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And that's been a lot of the like really deeply painful and difficult stuff. It's like integrating difficult stuff in a way that has it in an open-hearted way, kind of a way where I'm just like connected to it, even if it's like overwhelming or stressful, whatever.
And I'm imagining as well, as I kind of try to feel this, it feels like another way, not dissimilar from comedy, where you're operating in a different realm of rules, or the traditional rules don't apply, that categorization, like, so then there's some social dissonance, or there could be perceived social dissonance when you're within the realm of categorization that you're aware of, but not allowing that to impact the movement, something like that.
Yeah, it's really complex actually. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, this is cool. It's like, yeah, I'm on the heart's rules and the body rules, which are different to the mind's rules, and they're not real to me. They're just sort of like this game that everyone's playing, and I'm like, what, why? And I've got rid of so much. I mean, I didn't have much like fear and stuff in the first place, but I've got rid of so many like layers and layers and layers of like social conditioning that it's hard to relate to that in people. So people's behavior is confusing to me sometimes, and like I'm like, can't they just see that this is this and this doesn't make any sense? Stuff like a lot of stuff that comes up is how like things, there's a lot of subtlety around like how women are expected to behave versus men, which is really deeply ingrained in people because it's like the first thing we learn as babies. It's like mums do this, dads do this, and it's obviously different. Again, it's like different for everyone, but they are very different things, and like, and it's like reinforced throughout whole life, all this social stuff, and it's like undoing that then kind of causes this strange dissonance between my experience where everyone's just a unique being that I'm like talking to in this moment, versus like people who have these categories of like women, men, or like, yeah, high status, low status, this person, like in this situation we do this and this because we're afraid of talking about these things or whatever. And it's like yeah, it's complex.
Wow. Yeah, I'm still struck by the piece about babies. Like that the first thing that we do, and I'm remembering as a kid, the parents would put a sign in the front yard that says it's a boy or it's a girl. Like that's the first identity that we get.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. That way around as well. Yeah, you're given like, your identity. Yeah.
And we even say it's.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't it, and now it's a boy. And I'm with you, really being with the itness.
Yeah. Just the beingness.
Yeah.
Of everyone.
Yeah. And just a reminder to everyone, this is a podcast about comedy.
Got derailed. Go back to the chapters. Back to chapters quick.
So I know. Okay, that was chapter 17 on word association, and I think we did a nice job because we just allowed association to lead us where we needed to go.
I think maybe one thing about comedy and word association, which is nice, is losing track of the original joke, which is sort of to do with the half-life thing as well, isn't it?
Totally.
I like that.
And the masterful comedian somehow finding a way when the audience has totally forgotten about where you started and they bring it back, oh, the audience goes wild.
Yeah, I love it.
Oh my God, yes. Wow, it all came together. How did they do this? I'm mocking the audience right now. That's what's happening. And I'm allowed to do that because I know I am the audience. Okay. What other chapters do we have here? Self-censoring. Haven't, well, we kind of talked about it. Well, let's just do a riff on it and we'll see if it's of interest. It's of particular interest to me because I have become hyper aware of my own self-censoring process by way of entering a larger organism where your own I'll step back. So like spending 8 years with my buddies making stuff, there's a real affirmation within the three of us to make exactly what our hearts desire, and if it makes sense to us, we make it. And then you merge with a much larger 10,000 person multi-billion-dollar entity, and the values and the culture and the priorities and the structure, a lot of it runs in opposition. It's just a different environment. And so then you're operating on so many more levels. And for me, the experience of trying to learn how to just survive within that environment, and then you're trying to still make comedy in that environment. So you're learning which parts of yourself fit, what are the filters for comedy within that world, and what are the explicit filters and what are the implicit filters. And you only find out about those implicit filters when you run into them and afterwards someone's like, yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So it was an experience for me of spending 4 years learning and taking on filters that I didn't previously have.
Yeah.
And like I said, some ways the experience of learning how to examine a joke and why and what are we laughing at, really skillful, has forced me to understand the mechanism much better. And I've taken on a level of self-censoring that now I'm working on shedding. And I think that, yeah, this is a dance that most people working in comedy are with day in and day out with regards to the larger collective. What is this collective willing to see? What is the audience in Alabama versus San Francisco willing to be with? And then censoring based on reading the room in a way.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. This is great. And I feel like it relates to what we were just talking about with the sort of like collective kind of, yeah, like the categorization. A lot of it comes down to like good and bad, doesn't it? Acceptable and not acceptable. And that's this very like business collective great word. And then coming back to like the imaginal is kind of like the opposite force of that. The imaginal is like this open, flowing, free, anything is welcome, and that's what you have in your small group. And then you're like, that's trying to flow into this world that's way more like rigid and has all the rules, and trying to get those two to have a conversation that can translate.
Wow. I mean, this has the risk of blowing smoke, but the importance of the imaginal with regards to these degrees of freedom, which has been discussed recently, and those degrees of freedom operating exactly, I don't know, is it what's the way to put this? Like, if you are not willing to do any kind of inquiry around social conditioning or social norms, the degrees of freedom are extremely low. And so there is a risk even in opening oneself up to varying levels of imagination. And my experience with this work with you has been opening up many degrees, even in a space where it feels safe to do that, and then trying to figure out, okay, so how do I weave this into my larger network? yeah, there's a balancing act there in me.
Yeah, there's also something coming up about power that's important as well, and like modes of bringing in. It's almost like if the imaginal space is when I was describing it then, it's like very watery and kind of flowy and spacious and just like anything goes. And it's like if you can sort of flow with it, get people to flow with it, like a comedian who's on stage, then people can start, you can like pick people up and take them on the journey and kind of get them to come out of their comfort zone a bit. And as the comedian stood on the stage, you have the sort of power to be able to do that. But when the power balance is the other way around and you're as the imaginal, like flowing, more freedom, more importance, more like caring about this thing that you want to share, if that's hitting the societal structures and they're the ones that have the power, it has to be more like sharp and almost like kind of like a tidal wave that has to smash some stuff down, or like it has to be really strong, and you have to really like be clear about why you're doing it, and be like, actually this joke is worth putting out there, even though it's gonna smash a few things in its way.
Wow, this is so crazy. Yeah, it's just putting me in touch with the variables changing for any comedian as they do get more power. Like, it's one thing for a comedian who has no following and no audience to express things, and in some way there's a lot of freedom in that, because it's like, oh, there's not a lot of influence coming from this person, so they could really say something radical, and it's like, well, no one knows who this person is. And also they have a little less support behind them if they are making some substantial articulations. And then you see people, as they get more power, they do have more responsibility, and their words are held in a new light. And we see this all the time with people as they grow, and the masses. It's like someone gets more power, and my perception is they also lose empathy from the masses as that happens. And so they have to be very careful with what they're saying, and understanding how lucky they are that we as a collective have decided to give them our energy, our attention.
That's interesting. I feel like I have the opposite perception, maybe, where it's like if you're the small guy, it's like no one wants to back you, because if you're the person, there's like a social risk that everyone weighs up, where unless they think, if you're pushing back against power, unless they really believe that you're going to win, there's no way they'll come with you. And so you're like really on your own with it. And then there's the opposite side of that, is that if you've got the power, if someone starts pushing back against you, unless people really think that person's going to win, they'll back you. So they'll back the person who has the more power, basically, unless there's a really, really, really strong reason to back the other person. If there's like a
in that lens, I'm like, oh, totally. That feels like coming from the lens of survival, like just us making decisions based on what's in our personal best interest. Like, I want to be on the winning side, however this is going to shake out. And so I will make a bet on which one is more better for me. Man, there was something else that was coming up. I found this so juicy. Power side. I lost it as it is.
Gone. The magic.
It's all gone. I mean, I have to say, I love digging into this stuff so much.
Yeah, it's great.
I mean, I've spent so much time in it, so it's fun to get to share it.
Yeah, it's nice.
I'm so irritated that I lost that thread.
Let's have a moment of that.
Oh yeah,
if
moment
it
of
comes
zen.
back.
Oh,
It's a bit, no jokes allowed.
no jokes allowed. Oh yeah,
No
that
jokes
was
allowed. 2
that was going to
minutes.
be a podcast.
Yeah.
Sorry guys, that's an inside joke between Rosa and I, so you're not going to get it. I mean, I want to end on a big bang. I just this is the problem with not scripting your material.
Are there any more chapters, or are they? Have you completed your chapters, or?
The only thing I don't think I explicitly touched was timing. The art of timing, which is talked about immensely. And the two things are the setup and the punchline, like the actual timing of your language and articulation, which is way beyond verbal. It's the whole physical, energetic way of taking space and allowing for tension to build in a certain moment, and then like pushing you over at the right moment. And then cultural, societal, linear timing. Just as we see norms evolving and things that might have been quote funny 10 years ago and now are not funny, and just responses to what's happening in the world. I think the last 2 years have made it so there is a even more prevalence of dark humor online, because we have collectively been facing something that feels like direct end of times. Yeah, so just timing as a force within this world of comedy.
Yeah, nice.
I just wanted to name it.
It's good. Yeah. Time. I struggle to relate to time.
Well, yeah, okay, tell me about that. Like, doesn't exist, or what do you got?
It's like everything's happening at once in my world, so it's like hard to tune in. But I agree with everything you said. You can be the authority on time in this.
Wow. That feels, I was like, sorry, I just heard authority, and everything after that I was like, yes, this feels right, Rosa. Time. Yes, the king of time.
As the king of time. Is there anything else you'd like to say about time?
No, I'm getting urgent messages from my wife though, so now I feel like, oh shit, I have to go.
An important timing thing. Yeah,
that's a timing. Yeah, this is see time is real, Rosa. It gets super defensive about time, which I also think is on slippery ground. Okay, warning to time, you're on slippery ground, pal. We barely believe in you. Oh, sorry, it's 12:30 for me, it's 8:30 for Rosa. Yeah.
Great. We did it.
We found an ending.
Yeah, perfect. We can end there. Okay, cool. Nice. Okay,
click subscribe.
Cool.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Bye.
Okay, now I'm ending. Stop. Did I save it?